Okay, so if you're listening right now, chances are you know that feeling. The mental hamster wheel.
Oh, yeah. That constant churning loop. Worrying, planning, replaying things.
Exactly. It just steals your focus and, frankly, your peace.
It really does. And you're definitely not alone in that.
No,
Oh,
apparently not.
yeah.
We looked at some sources, and one statistic was just staggering. It said 85% of college students report feeling, overwhelming anxiety.
85%. That's huge. It shows the struggle to quiet the internal noise is pretty much universal.
It feels like an epidemic of overthinking sometimes.
It does, but our sources show this isn't just some modern thing. It goes way back.
How far back?
Well, 5,000 years ago, the warrior Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, he basically described this exact struggle.
Really? What did he say?
He said, the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind.
Wow. More difficult than controlling the wind. That
Yeah.
that really frames what we're trying to do in this deep dive, doesn't it?
Perfectly. That's our mission today, really, to try and bridge that ancient wisdom, those sort of philosophical maps of consciousness.
With what we know now from modern neuroscience.
Yeah.
Things like the default mode network, the prefrontal cortex.
Exactly. We want to find practical paths, biological and mental ways to actually tame that inner chaos.
We're looking for the how, the actual intervention points.
Right. And to even find those interventions, we kind of have to tackle a pretty fundamental question first.
Which is,
Are you just your brain? We have to start by sort of challenging that purely materialist view.
okay, let's unpack that. Because, if we're going to tame the mind, we need to know what the mind is.
The mainstream view often just equates mind with brain activity, electrical signals, chemicals.
Right, the brain is the mind. End of story.
But the evidence we looked at, it suggests something maybe more nuanced, like the brain is less the source and more, maybe a really sophisticated instrument.
Like a radio receiver.
Mhm.
That analogy comes up.
Exactly like that. It's absolutely necessary for functioning day to day, but maybe not the thing that originates you, the conscious self.
Okay, so what's the evidence challenging that materialist view?
Well, some really compelling stuff comes from neurosurgery, actually. Cases that seriously complicate the mind equals brain idea.
Like what kind of cases?
We reviewed material on people who've lost massive amounts of brain tissue, yet their core consciousness, their ability to think abstractly, it remains surprisingly intact.
Can you give an example? It's hard to picture.
Sure. There was one case, a young woman found to be missing fully 2/3 of her brain tissue, large parts of the cerebellum gone.
2/3. And she was.
An honor roll student. High
Yeah.
functioning. And there are other cases too, like people missing most of their cerebellum who still got master's degrees, kept their personality, their wit.
Okay, that is hard to square with the idea that consciousness is just brain tissue. If the hardware is mostly gone, how does the complex software keep running?
That's the question, isn't it? It implies the brain is maybe a filter, or like we said, a necessary instrument. But the deeper self, the consciousness, might persist beyond just the physical structure.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here, or maybe just to confuse this listener. If the brain's just a receiver, why does stuff like alcohol or caffeine even change our consciousness so drastically?
Right.
If the me is separate, why does chemistry mess with the experience so much?
That's a crucial point. Using the radio analogy again, the signal, let's say consciousness, is still broadcasting. But the receiver, the brain, has been physically altered or kind of scrambled by the chemistry.
Ah, okay, so the receiver's ability to tune in clearly is impaired.
Exactly. Alcohol distorts the output, makes it fuzzy, staticky, but it doesn't necessarily destroy the original transmission. It just confirms the brain is essential for experiencing reality clearly in a structured way.
But maybe not for generating the abstract self that's doing the experiencing.
That's the idea these cases point towards. And then there's the historical neuroscience, which is also really telling. Wilder Penfield's work.
The neurosurgeon who stimulated patients' brains during surgery.
Yes, decades of work. He could physically stimulate the brain and make someone raise their arm or trigger a very specific sensory memory like...
The smell of toast, I think I read.
Yeah.
Or a song.
Precisely. Sensory stuff, motor stuff. But he concluded he could never stimulate abstract reasoning, planning, moral judgment, that kind of thing.
He couldn't poke a spot and make someone contemplate justice.
Never. He famously said, "There are no calculus seizures." Those higher abstract functions seem to be beyond direct physical triggering.
Okay, that's powerful. And adding to this challenge to the purely material view is the whole idea of free will.
Right, which many models, scientific and philosophical, argue is just an illusion.
But our entire society, our laws, morality, it's all built on the assumption that we do choose.
It absolutely is. And interestingly, some modern research actually supports that assumption, at least partially. Benjamin Libet's work.
Ah, yes, the readiness potential guy.
Yeah.
His early stuff seemed to suggest brain activity before conscious decision.
It did. But his later work, focusing on what he called the free won't, is maybe even more interesting.
Free will. What's that?
He found that while that brain signal might precede the impulse to act, the conscious decision to veto the action
To not do it.
did not have that same preceding spike. It suggests our freedom might lie less in generating the impulse and more in our power to override it or redirect it.
The power to say no to an impulse seems to originate consciously. That's huge.
It is. It's that capacity to choose not to act. And speaking of things that lack that kind of core freedom,
AI.
exactly, artificial intelligence. No matter how sophisticated it gets, our sources argue it lacks a key ingredient of a real mind: intentionality.
Intentionality. The
Empowered.
ness of thought.
Yeah. Human thoughts are always about something: hunger, justice, that person across the room. There's meaning, semantics.
Whereas AI, it can manipulate symbols, arrange words grammatically.
Perfectly. It masters the syntax. But it doesn't feel the meaning behind them. It lacks that inner subjective aboutness.
And that capacity for abstract, intentional thought, you're saying, is non-physical.
The argument is yes. The source used a great analogy: the concept of the number 8.
Right.
You can destroy every physical 8-foot, burn the paper, erase the screen, but you can't destroy the abstract concept of 8-ness itself.
Because the concept doesn't exist physically. It's an idea.
Right. And that's the model for this deeper, non-material aspect of intelligence, maybe the soul.
Okay, wow. So if the mind has this incredible capacity, this non-physical consciousness, this veto power, why is it such a mess sometimes?
Yeah, why the chaos? If we have this inner brilliance, why does the hamster wheel feel so overwhelming?
Right. Let's shift into that now, part 2, the anatomy of this mental chaos. Where does the science meet the struggle?
Well, we can connect this directly to modern neuroscience. Researchers have identified something called the default mode network, the DMN.
That's the brain's activity when it's supposedly at rest, right? When you're not focused on a specific task.
Exactly, but it's not really resting. It's busy with self-referential thought, mind-wandering, ruminating about the past, worrying about the future.
And the link to anxiety and depression is?
That this network becomes hyperactive. It's basically the engine driving that mental hamster wheel, constantly digging up regrets and forecasting disasters.
Okay, so neuroscience gives us the overactive network.
But what's amazing is that the ancient texts, like the Bhagavad Gita, they mapped the process of how this happens thousands of years ago. They gave a blueprint for when the DMN basically hijacks the system.
A blueprint for losing control.
A very precise one. The Gita describes a 5-step cascade for how we lose mental control, and it starts with a single, very biological reaction.
Which is?
Anger, or maybe more broadly, a strong negative emotional reaction to perceived loss, failure, a threat.
Okay, anger arises. Step 1. What happens then?
That initial surge triggers a hard switch. You shift from your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, or PFC,
The thinking, planning part.
to the primitive survival brain, the limbic system, the amygdala. Fight or flight kicks in, and the PFC starts to get sidelined. Power down.
Okay, so the switch gets thrown, and the cascade picks up speed.
It does. Step 2 is delusion, samoha in Sanskrit. This means tunnel vision.
Ah, like everything else disappears except the thing you're angry about.
Exactly. All perspective, priorities, rational thoughts just vanish. You're locked onto the offense.
Scary. Okay, what's step 3?
Loss of memory. Sriti Brahma. Now, this doesn't mean you forget what happened. It means the high alert state blocks access to your rational memory networks.
So you can't recall calming memories or solutions.
Worse, you selectively recall every past hurt, every similar incident to fuel the current fire. The mind becomes an echo chamber of grievance.
Okay, that explains why arguments escalate so fast. The system's gone rogue. Step 4.
Destruction of intelligence. Buddhanasha. By now, the prefrontal cortex, your logic center, is basically offline due to the emotional overload.
So you literally can't think straight.
You are physiologically incapable of rational thought at that peak moment.
Which leads, inevitably, to step 5.
One is lost, pranashati. Your core self, the part that manages things, navigates the world. It fails. Self-management collapses. The primitive brain is driving the bus.
Wow. That ancient map sounds like a clinical description of a full-blown panic attack or maybe a road rage incident.
It absolutely is. And you see this play out everywhere, from ancient stories to, well, modern life.
Like Arjuna on the battlefield. You mentioned him earlier.
Yes, the quintessential warrior. Prepared, skilled, but facing the enormity of the battle, he has a complete psychological collapse. Says his limbs are quivering, mouth drying up.
Classic panic attack symptoms,
Probably.
triggered by overwhelming stress.
Exactly. And then fast forward thousands of years, you see it even with peak external success. Think about Madonna.
The pop icon. How does she fit in?
Well, we reviewed sources where she talked about reaching the absolute pinnacle of fame and fortune, having everything anyone could dream of, and yet she realized, quote, "I had everything that people would assume would give you happiness, but I wasn't happy."
Right. It proves external success doesn't immunize you from internal chaos. If that DMN engine is running wild, the outside doesn't fix it.
Precisely. Which brings us to the crucial point. If the rational mind, the PFC, gets knocked offline during this emotional spiral.
You can't just think your way out using logic. It's like trying to reason with a toddler having a tantrum.
Exactly. You need specific, practical interventions that work even when the rational brain is compromised.
Okay, so this leads us to the solutions, the practical stuff. What are the pillars for actually taming this mind?
We distill it down to 3 core pillars based on the sources, blending the ancient and modern insights. Pillar 1 is awareness.
Awareness, known as Sakshi Bhava in the text, right? Witness consciousness.
That's it. The crucial first step is simply noticing the spiral starting, catching it before it gains too much momentum, before it achieves escape velocity.
This is that Alan Watts idea, isn't it? You are the sky, not the clouds.
Beautifully put. The clouds, your thoughts, worries, impulses, they're always moving, changing, sometimes stormy. But you, the sky, are the vast, still awareness that just watches them pass.
You're the listener, not the frantic creator of the thoughts.
Yes. And practically, this means using your higher mind, that seat of intelligence, Buddhi we talked about, to observe the lower mind, the manas, the processing center that gets chaotic.
So instead of thinking, I am anxious, you shift to, I am observing the feeling of anxiety.
That tiny shift is profound. It creates distance. It creates the space where that free won't, that power to choose, can actually engage. You're not fused with the emotion anymore.
Okay, awareness is pillar 1. What's pillar 2?
Pillar 2 is redirection, or maybe think of it as biological nervous system hacks.
Hacks. Okay, I like the sound of that. Why biological?
Because, as we saw in the cascade, the spiral is physical too. Your body gets flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. The sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, is fully activated.
So the first intervention needs to be physical to override that biological alarm.
Exactly. You need to consciously shift the body out of fight or flight and into the parasympathetic state, rest and digest. You're basically hitting the physiological brakes.
And the key player here is the vagus nerve, right? That long nerve running through the body.
The calming superhighway, it's often called. The goal is to increase vagal tone consciously.
Okay, how do we physically hack the vagus nerve? How do we increase its tone?
Research shows some simple things work surprisingly quickly. Deep, controlled breathing is huge, especially focusing on the exhale.
Why the exhale specifically?
Because slowing the exhale stimulates the vagus nerve as the lungs deflate. Making your exhale longer than your inhale sends a powerful signal. Danger's over. Stand down.
So it's not just take a deep breath. It's control the breath, extend the out-breath.
Precisely. Control and duration matter. Other simple hacks.
Yeah.
Just simple movement can help burn off stress hormones. Even drinking a glass of cold water can provide a mild shock to the system that helps interrupt the feedback loop.
Huh. Cold water. Interesting. And yogic practices have tools for this too.
Absolutely. Pranayama, which is breath control, is central. There are specific techniques.
Can you give an example that really targets this biological level?
Sure. Nadi Shodhan, or alternate nostril breathing, is fantastic. It forces you to regulate the breath very consciously, balancing energy systems.
Right, I've tried that. It really makes you focus.
It does. And another one is Tredika, or gazing practice. Staring steadily at a single point, like a candle flame.
How does staring help?
It's neuromuscular attention training. It forces the mind to tether itself to a stable visual input, quieting the internal chatter, cutting off the DMN's fuel supply for a bit.
Okay, awareness and redirection. What's the third pillar?
The third pillar is rituals and consistency. This is about building mental muscle over time. It's the difference between having a momentary insight and actually changing your baseline state.
This sounds like where the real work comes in.
It is, and it involves 2 key concepts from the Gita, adhyasa and vairagya.
Okay, break those down. Abhyasa is?
Abhyasa is the conscious, dedicated practice, the consistent effort, showing up regularly. Think of Madonna again, making spiritual study a non-negotiable part of her routine for 28 years.
That's commitment. But starting something like that feels daunting.
Which is why the key to Abhyasa is starting super, super simple. Set the bar so low you can't fail.
Like 1 minute of breathwork a day.
Exactly. Or 5 minutes. Something achievable that overcomes the inertia, builds momentum, and creates a positive feedback loop in the brain. Hey, I can do this.
Okay, so abhyasa is the practice. What's viraga?
Viraga is detachment. Or maybe non-attachment is a better word. It's cultivating that deep understanding that you are not your thoughts or emotions.
Back to being the sky, not the clouds.
Yes. Realizing thoughts and feelings arise and pass. You don't have to believe them, identify with them, or act on every single one. Vairagya creates the space to apply your free you won't, to choose your response calmly.
Awareness, redirection, consistency through practice and detachment. Those are the pillars.
Those are the pillars for taming the chaos. But this naturally leads us into the deeper journey, because this inner work, well, it's not always about feeling good immediately.
Right, you can't just install peace like software. You have to deal with what's already there.
Exactly. You can't expect to eliminate the chaos without confronting what might be fueling it beneath the surface. And there's a powerful Vedic allegory for this, the churning of the ocean, Samudramanthan.
The churning of the ocean. Sounds intense. What does it represent?
It's a map for deep psychological transformation. To get the nectar of immortality or peace, the devas, gods, our positive tendencies, have to cooperate with the asuras. Demons are shadow aspects, ego, resistance.
So you have to work with the difficult parts of yourself, not just fight them.
You have to engage all parts. You need the tension, the churning for transformation to happen.
Okay, so they churn the ocean of the subconscious. What comes out first? Is it the good stuff?
No, that's the crucial lesson. The very first thing to emerge from the churning is halahala.
Halal. What's that?
A deadly poison. It represents all the buried negativity, the grief, the trauma, the unresolved anger, the muck we've stored away.
So the first step in deep healing is often confronting the worst stuff. You can't skip the poison.
You cannot skip it. It must surface to be dealt with.
How do you deal with psychological poison without being destroyed by it?
The metaphor is incredible. Lord Shiva steps in. He drinks the halahala, but he doesn't swallow it down into his belly.
Which would be like suppressing it, pushing it back down.
Exactly. And he doesn't spit it out either.
Which would be like projecting it onto others, blaming, acting out.
Right. He holds the poison in his throat.
The throat. Symbolizing what?
Language. Expression. The rational mind, the prefrontal cortex, giving structure to raw experience. Holding it in the throat means processing the raw, toxic emotion by giving it structure with thought and words.
So turning arg into, I feel this intense anger because X happened and it connects to Y from my past.
Precisely. It's metabolizing raw feeling into understanding. Giving it shape, acknowledging it without letting it consume you or poison others. That's the work.
And you mentioned Madonna again here as a modern example of processing her own poison.
Yes, her public journey involved facing immense personal halahala difficult relationships, a painful custody battle where she apparently contemplated suicide. Real poison.
But she didn't just suppress it or lash out.
According to the sources, she engaged in conscious processing. Acts like eventually forgiving her estranged brother, working towards acceptance, and through that difficult churning,
Came the treasure.
the nectar.
Came what she termed radical acceptance, a kind of clarity and inner peace that seems to only emerge after you've grappled with and metabolized the poison. The nectar comes after the halahala is processed.
That's a really powerful reframe. The hard stuff isn't just an obstacle. It's part of the process of finding the good stuff.
It is the process, and other traditions echo this, the Kabbalistic idea of tikkun. It suggests that the challenges you face aren't random. They're tailored opportunities for your soul's growth and repair. The chaos you encounter is the precise resistance you need to build your inner strength, your resilience.
So radical acceptance isn't just accepting the situation, but maybe accepting it as necessary, as part of the path.
That's the deeper invitation, yes.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot, from challenging the mind-brain identity to mapping the chaos spiral to the pillars of taming it, and now this deeper journey of processing the poison.
It brings us full circle, really. The journey isn't about stopping thoughts that's impossible, like stopping the wind.
Right. It's about changing your relationship with your thoughts.
Using that awareness, that free will, that free won't, to become the observer. the sky instead of the captive of the clouds.
Moving the mind from being your greatest enemy.
To becoming your best friend, trained and aligned with your deeper self.
So we don't want people just listening to this and thinking, that was interesting. We want to make it actionable.
Absolutely. Philosophy is great, but practice is where the change happens.
Okay, so based on those 3 pillars, awareness, redirection, consistency, we've put together a simple 30-day challenge, just a low barrier entry point.
Something anyone can try. What's week 1?
Week 1, just start a 5-minute daily practice. That's it. Either some simple breath work, focusing on that slow exhale, or just 5 minutes of sitting and observing your thoughts without judgment. Build the abhyasa muscle.
Okay, 5 minutes daily.
Week 2, keep the daily practice, but add one intentional act of redirection. Sometime during the week when you feel stress rising, consciously use your breath. Notice the feeling, then take a few slow, controlled breaths, extending the exhale.
Use that biological hack in real time. Got it. Week 3.
Week 3, keep the practice, keep looking for redirection moments, and add a focus on vairagya, the detachment. Practice being the sky. Let one specific negative thought cloud drift by without believing it, without grabbing onto it, without judging yourself for having it. Just watch it pass.
Awareness, redirection, detachment in action. Simple steps, but consistent practice builds that mental muscle.
Exactly. And remember that promise from the Gita we mentioned.
In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear.
Even a little bit helps. It's about starting. Embrace that free won't. You do have the power to choose your response, even amidst the chaos.
The structures are there, ancient and modern. The science and the wisdom align. The work, now. Well, that's yours to begin if you choose.